Now we are going to understand human respiratory system. This respiratory system brings about inspiration, that is inhalation of air, expiration, that is exhalation of air, and exchange of gases in the lungs. These gases are transported by blood from the lungs to the different parts of the body. This respiratory system is divided into two parts, the upper respiratory system and the lower respiratory system. The upper respiratory system consists of nostrils, which are also called as external nares, nasal cavity, which is also called as nasal chamber, internal nares, nasopharynx, and the throat. The lower respiratory system consists of larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and the lungs. Now, let us understand external nares, nasal chamber, and internal nares with the help of this diagram. Now, here you can see these these openings which are present in the nose. Those openings are called as external nares. These openings, these external nares, they lead to a passage. This passage is called as the nasal chamber. Now, the base of this nasal chamber or the floor of this nasal chamber is called as palate. This nasal chamber is divided into three parts. Now, there is no such differentiation inside the nasal chamber, but we know which part is situated where. Now, this nasal chamber is divided into three parts. First part, that is vestibular chamber. Now, this vestibular chamber, it is lined with mucous membrane and hair. The anterior part of this nasal chamber is the vestibular chamber. The surface of this vestibular chamber is lined with mucous membrane and hair. Now, when we inhale the air, sometimes dust and dirt particles also enter our nostrils. Now, to prevent those dust and dirt particles from entering inside the chamber, these mucous membrane and the hair helps preventing them from entering inside the chamber. So, the function of this vestibular chamber is filtration of air. The next part, that is respiratory chamber. This respiratory chamber is also lined with mucous membrane, but this mucous membrane is highly vascularized. Means the capillaries here are more in number. So more the number of capillaries, the more blood is supplied in this respiratory chamber. Now, this respiratory chamber, it acts as an air conditioner. Now, what is the function of air conditioner? It regulates the temperature, right? So here, this respiratory chamber does two things. First, when we inhale cold air, at that time, as we know, the blood also supplies heat along with all the nutrients and the gases. So here, as we inhale the cold air, if we inhale the cold air and that extremely cold air, if it reaches the lungs, the alveoli which is present in the lungs will get damaged. So this shouldn't happen. So for that, this respiratory chamber, here more blood is supplied. So more heat will be supplied along with more blood. So as the more blood is supplied, the heat increases in this chamber. As the heat increases, this heat is radiated to the cold air, is transferred to the cold air. And as the heat is transferred to the cold air, that air becomes warm. And the second situation, that is when we inhale hot air or warm air. When we inhale that hot air, what happens? This mucous membrane, it secretes more and more mucus. Now more mucus is secreted, that mucus gets evaporated. Now for evaporation, heat is required, right? So this heat is taken from the hot air which is inhaled by us. So the heat is taken from the air and the air then cools down at the end. So in these situations, this respiratory chamber, it acts as an air conditioner. It regulates the temperature of the air which we inhale. The third part or the third chamber, that is olfactory chamber. This chamber is lined with sensory membrane. Now, the sensory membrane is called as Naderian membrane, and this membrane is the cells which are present in this membrane are called as olfactory cells. These cells, as their name itself states, these cells, they help us in perceiving the smell. So the function of this olfactory chamber is perception of smell. So this nasal chamber is divided into three parts. पहिला part vestibular chamber. Vestibular chamber मध्ये mucous membrane आणि hair surface वरती असतात, present असतात. आणि हे mucous membrane आणि hair डस्ट आणि डर्ट पार्टिकल्सला नेझल चेंबर मध्ये एंटर करण्यापासून अवॉइड करतात किंवा स्टॉप करतात. नेक्स्ट आहे रेस्पिरेटरी चेंबर. रेस्पिरेटरी चेंबर हा याच्यात सुद्धा म्युकस मेम्ब्रेन असते. म्युकस मेम्ब्रेन इथे हायली वॅस्क्युलराइज्ड असते. हायली वॅस्क्युलराइज्ड म्हणजे याच्यात कॅपिलरी नेटवर्क असतो. कॅपिलरीज जास्त असतात. जास्त कॅपिलरीज म्हणजे ब्लड सप्लाय सुद्धा जास्त असतो. आणि दिस रेस्पिरेटरी चेंबर इट ॲक्ट्स ॲज अन एअर कंडिशनर. एअर कंडिशनर प्रमाणे वर्क करतो. सो इन टू काइंड्स ऑफ सिच्युएशन, जेव्हा आपण कोल्ड एअर इनहेल करतो त्यावेळेला त्या कोल्ड एअरला वॉर्म करण्यासाठी, आणि सेकंड सिच्युएशन जेव्हा आपण हॉट एअर इनहेल करतो त्या हॉट एअरला कूल डाऊन करण्यासाठी, दिस रेस्पिरेटरी चेंबर इट ॲक्ट्स ॲज अन एअर कंडिशनर. तिसरा पार्ट म्हणजे ऑल्फॅक्टरी चेंबर. हा ऑल्फॅक्टरी चेंबर ह्याच्यात सुद्धा मेम्ब्रेन असते, दॅट इज सेन्सरी मेम्ब्रेन. इट इज कॉल्ड ॲज निडेरियन मेम्ब्रेन. अँड ह्याच्यामध्ये जे सेल्स असतात ते असतात ऑल्फॅक्टरी सेल्स. दीज सेल्स दे हेल्प अस टू परसीव्ह द स्मेल. स्मेल कोणते आहे हे ओळखण्यासाठी हे सेल्स आपल्याला हेल्प करतात. नाव in these nasal chambers there are folds. Scroll-like folds are present in this nasal chamber. Those scroll-like folds are called as conchae or turbinals. Now, conchae is the plural form. In singular form, it is called as concha. The first is the inferior concha, which is also called as maxilloturbinal. Second is lateral concha, which is also called as the ethmoturbinal. And the third is superior concha, which is also called as the nasoturbinal. आता हे जे तीन कॉन्कीज प्रेझेंट असतात हे कोणकोणत्या चेंबर्स मध्ये प्रेझेंट असतात हे आपण पाहू. द फर्स्ट अँड द सेकंड, द इन्फिरियर अँड द लॅटरल कॉन्की, these are present in the respiratory chamber. And the third, that is superior concha, it is present in the olfactory chamber. Now here in this diagram we'll see where these conchae are present. These conchae, inferior and superior conchae are present over here in the respiratory chamber. So these are the inferior and lateral conchae. And the superior conchae, which is present over here. This is the superior concha. Now, the function of these concha, that is, as we have studied in the respiratory surface, while studying the respiratory surface, that the respiratory surface should be enlarged or should be large. So here, these folds, they help in enlarging the surface of the respiration. So these folds, they help to get more and more absorption of the gases. These conchae are present in each chamber, 3 in each chamber. So there are 2 nostrils. So 2 nostrils means 2 chambers. So in each chamber, all these 3 conchae are present. So there are in total 6 conchae present in the nasal chamber. Now this posterior part of the nasal chamber is called as the internal nares. These internal nares, whenever we swallow something, जेव्हा आपण काहीही गिळतो त्यावेळेला these internal nares they get closed with the help of this bulb like structure which is called as uvula. These internal nares they get closed whenever we swallow something. Now these are the external nares, nasal chamber, and internal nares we have seen. This external nares they lead into a passage. एका पॅसेज मध्ये लीड करतात आणि दॅट पॅसेज इज कॉल्ड ॲज नेझल चेंबर. हे नेझल चेंबर पुढे 3 पार्ट्स मध्ये डिवाइड केलं जातं. पहिला पार्ट दॅट इज वेस्टिब्युलर चेंबर. या वेस्टिब्युलर चेंबर मध्ये म्युकस आणि हेअर प्रेझेंट असतात आणि या वेस्टिब्युलर चेंबरचं फंक्शन आहे एअरला फिल्टर करण्याचं. whatever air that we inhale to filter that air. दुसरा आहे रेस्पिरेटरी चेंबर. ह्या रेस्पिरेटरी चेंबर मध्ये म्युकस मेम्ब्रेन प्रेझेंट असते आणि ही म्युकस मेम्ब्रेन हायली वॅस्क्युलर असते जिथे ब्लड सप्लाय जास्त असतो. this respiratory chamber it acts as an air conditioner. एअर कंडिशनर प्रमाणे काम करतो. जेव्हा आपण कोल्ड एअर इनहेल करतो त्या कोल्ड एअरला वॉर्म करण्यासाठी आणि हॉट एअर जेव्हा आपण इनहेल करतो त्या हॉट एअरला कूल डाऊन करण्यासाठी हे रेस्पिरेटरी चेंबर एअर कंडिशनर प्रमाणे काम करतं. द नेक्स्ट इज ऑल्फॅक्टरी चेंबर. ह्या ऑल्फॅक्टरी चेंबरमध्ये सेन्सरी मेम्ब्रेन असते. ही सेन्सरी मेम्ब्रेन याच्यात ऑल्फॅक्टरी सेल्स प्रेझेंट असतात आणि हे सेल्स आपल्याला स्मेल कोणती आहे हे ओळखण्यासाठी हेल्प करतात. नाउ देर आर फोल्ड्स इन द surface of the nasal chamber. Those folds are inferior concha, lateral concha and superior concha. These conches they help in the enlargement of the respiratory surface. Now these conches are present in pair. Each chamber has 3 conches, so both the chambers has in total 6 pairs of conchae. Internal nares. The posterior part of the nasal chamber is called as internal nares. आणि हे internal nares जेव्हा आपण काही गिळतो whenever we swallow something these internal nares they get closed with the help of this uvula, bulb like structure which is called as uvula.